At family dinner, my mom calmly said, "You're officially dead to this family," while cutting her chicken. The next morning, I got a life-changing notification that would make them all regret it. The words hit me like ice water. My own mother had just disowned me over dinner conversation, speaking with the same casual tone she'd used to discuss the weather. My siblings Victoria and Daniel didn't even look up from their plates. Dad continued commenting on the wine. They'd rehearsed this moment, planned it like a business meeting, and executed it with surgical precision. I sat there frozen, watching them laugh and chat as if they hadn't just erased their own daughter from existence. The betrayal was suffocating, but underneath the shock, something else began to crystallize. Clarity. For the first time in years, I could see them exactly as they were. Image-obsessed social climbers who valued reputation over family, appearances over authenticity. I slipped my phone from my purse, needing something to ground me in reality. The screen lit up with a single notification that made my heart stop. Congratulations. Your article, "The Hidden Environmental Cost of Fast Fashion," has been selected as a finalist for the National Environmental Journalism Award. Winner announced tomorrow. Confirm attendance. I read it 3 times, then a 4th. The National Environmental Journalism Award, the most prestigious honor in environmental reporting, with a $50,000 prize and guaranteed coverage in major publications. 6 months ago, I'd bled for that story, traveling across continents, interviewing cotton farmers, factory workers, executives, and climate scientists. The work my family dismissed as blogging had just been nominated for journalism's highest honor. I slipped the phone back without a word, let them finish their self-satisfied dinner. Tomorrow they'd learn exactly who they'd just buried. My name is Lauren Caldwell, and I'm an investigative environmental journalist with a master's from Columbia. What my family never understood was that I'd built something real while they'd been busy maintaining facades. I wasn't just some struggling freelancer writing copy for pet food companies. I had 3 years at the Charleston Tribune before going independent, and a growing reputation for exposing corporate environmental crimes. My tiny apartment above a coffee shop was actually a strategic choice. The rent was $800 a month, leaving me free to invest in my real work. While they made car payments on status symbol BMWs, I drove my reliable Honda and banked the difference. My savings account held $47,000, built from careful budgeting and lucrative freelance contracts they knew nothing about. More importantly, I'd spent 2 years building the kind of professional network they'd kill for. Environmental lawyers, EPA whistleblowers, documentary filmmakers, editors at National Geographic and The Atlantic. Real relationships with people who actually changed the world, not just talked about it at charity galas. The fast fashion investigation had connected me with Dr. Rebecca Chen, a textile waste researcher at MIT. Also Marcus Torres, a labor rights attorney specializing in international manufacturing, and Elena Vasquez, a documentary filmmaker whose environmental exposés had won Emmys. These weren't just sources. They were colleagues who respected my work and understood its impact. My phone had been buzzing for months with interview requests, speaking opportunities, and collaboration offers. While my family saw failure, the people who mattered in environmental journalism saw rising talent. The award nomination wasn't luck. It was recognition of systematic, methodical work that had taken years to develop. The next morning, I put on my one good black dress and drove to the Charleston Grand Hotel. The ballroom was packed with editors, journalists, and industry leaders whose work I'd studied for years. This was my world. People who cared about truth, impact, and making a difference, not just looking successful at dinner parties. When they called my name for the award, I couldn't breathe. Applause crashed over me as I walked to the podium on unsteady legs. The Crystal Award caught the lights, scattering rainbows across the room full of peers who actually understood what I did and why it mattered. This award represents 3 months of research, dozens of interviews, and countless hours of investigation, I said. my voice growing stronger with each word. But more than that, it represents journalism's power to expose truths that corporations would rather keep hidden. When I started this investigation, people told me fashion journalism wasn't serious, that environmental reporting didn't matter. But the work that matters most is often the work no one understands until it forces change. By the end of the night, I'd exchanged cards with editors from major publications, commitments from documentary filmmakers, and even interest from a literary agent about expanding the investigation into a book. My phone buzzed constantly with congratulations and interview requests. Back home, I set the Crystal Award on my counter and watched the messages flood in. Then came the family texts. Victoria at "Saw the news. Impressive." Daniel at "Mom mentioned the award. Cool stuff." Mom at "We need to talk. Call me." Dad at "Saw your name in the paper. Let's discuss." I answered none of them. The next morning brought a knock at my door. My entire family stood in the hallway looking awkward and rehearsed. "Lauren," Mom began carefully, "we think there may have been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" My voice was flat. "You declared me dead to the family less than 48 hours ago." "We didn't realize you were working on something so important," Victoria rushed. "If we had..." "You would have what? Respected me instead of disowning me?" Dad cleared his throat. "We may have been hasty in our judgment." Hasty. That's one word for it. I studied their faces, seeing the calculation behind their sudden concern. This award, it comes with $50,000 and guaranteed publication in major outlets. Plus, I just signed with Verdant Weekly as a staff environmental correspondent. Full salary, benefits, and an office in Portland. The silence was deafening. They hadn't come to apologize. They'd come to reclaim their connection to something prestigious. "I'm moving to Oregon next month," I continued. 3,000 miles from Charleston, from all of this. "But family dinner," Victoria started. "I'll keep doing the work I believe in," I cut her off. "If you can respect that even when you don't understand it, maybe we can rebuild something. But if you ever reduce my worth to how I make you look again, we're finished." They nodded eagerly, but I saw the calculation in their eyes. And I was right. Over the following months, they paraded my award when it benefited them. Daniel with clients, Victoria at her firm, my parents at neighborhood gatherings. But they never read my work, never asked what came next. When the initial buzz faded, so did their interest. Daniel slipped back to his blogging jokes. Victoria stopped mentioning my work. My parents returned to suggesting safer careers, always adding, "Of course, we're proud of your award." Nothing had truly changed except their ability to brag about me. So I changed everything else. 2 years later, when I won a Pulitzer for exposing EPA corruption, they finally understood. Daniel built a sustainable investing practice inspired by my reporting. Victoria's law firm started taking pro bono environmental cases. My parents began supporting conservation causes. The tiny apartment they'd mocked was replaced by a Portland condo, and my dismissed career had become both meaningful and secure. Sometimes you have to be pushed away from the table to claim your own seat in life. Never let someone else's limited vision define your worth.